The freedom that was promised to Oceania. There is no freedom of speech, no freedom of thought, no freedom of assembly, no freedom of the press.
Freedom is slavery! Freedom is slavery! Freedom is slavery!
What remains of the ideal of peace? Universal peace, peace with our neighbors, peace to till the soil, peace.
War is peace! War is peace! War is peace!
Whole of Oceania is plunged in ignorance, universal and abysmal ignorance, ignorance even of the most elementary principles of democracy.
Ignorance is hate! Ignorance is hate! Ignorance is hate! Freedom is slavery! Freedom is slavery! Freedom is slavery! War is peace! War is peace! War is peace! Ignorance is hate! Ignorance is hate! Ignorance is hate!
Listen to me. Please listen. If you don't, if you won't, if you fail to understand, then the same incredible terror that's menacing me will strike at you!
I want you to get mad. You've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Flipping the Pyramid. www.flippingthepyramid.co.uk. We aim to discover the truth about our world and the issues it faces.
I have this feeling, man, because you know there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. It's not I'm not a conspiracy nut. It's provable. Handful, very small elite run and own these corporations, which include the mainstream media. I have this feeling who's ever elected president, like Clinton was, no matter what your promises you promise on the campaign trail, blah, 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 when you win, you go into this smoky room with the 12 industrialists, capitalist scumfucks who got you in there, and you're in this smoky room, and this little film screen comes down, and a big guy in a cigar, roll the film. And it's a shot of the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before. It looks suspiciously off the grassy knoll. And then the screen goes up, and the lights come up, and they go to the new president. Any questions? Just what my agenda is. First we bomb Baghdad. You got it.
We are flipping the pyramid. Flipping the pyramid.
Hello folks, welcome to Flipping the Pyramid. This virtual shamanizing with me, the HairyCookieMunster. Yes, first we bomb Baghdad. So it just seemed somewhat appropriate at the moment, however many years old that is. Early 90s I think that particular tour wasn't it? Late 80s, early 90s. Yes, the great Bill Hicks, thank you. Yes, hello folks, welcome. It is the 28th of the 6th, 2012. Yes, we are still chugging through. The escalations are rising. I'll go over that a little bit shortly. Talk about some other stuff first. General news, been watching general news, as I do, watching for the trends, the memes, the manipulations that run through the mainstream media, as well as some of the alternative media. Its tentacles do reach quite far. That smoky back room has a long reach out into the big wide world beyond its doors. Yes, anyway, before I digress, over the last week. Let's see, there's been various things going on, isn't there? Bank runs in Greece. These are just a few observations. I haven't sort of picked out any particular articles or stories to go along with this, because it's sort of generally ongoing stuff, isn't it? It's all the slow motion car crash of the death of the euro, supposedly. You know, it is still slowly crunching into that big brick wall. Yes, bank runs in Greece. Strange manipulations going on with the actual banks themselves, not only in Greece, but also in Italy. Banks blocking access to accounts, basically freezing people's bank accounts. And of course, there was also, it was NatWest, wasn't it, here in this country, which claimed that they were suffering from a hack attack by those horrible, nasty hacktivists that seem to be getting everywhere nowadays. You just can't get away from them, can you? Maybe that's because of how much time you spend online. How often do you meet somebody who claims to be from Anonymous when you're online, compared to how often do you meet the same person claiming to be Anonymous when you're in the outer net, you know, out in the real world? I think proportionately there is a big difference there anyway. Yes, I'm digressing again already. But it just sort of piqued my attention in an ironic fashion, you know, in that cynical, sarcastic, gallows humour fashion of, yeah, that's just bloody typical. That he's head of Barclays, possibly facing, well, let's put it, they're not going to give him the sack, are they? They'll give him the usual polished brush off. He'll get a nice retirement package. He'll get a nice bonus. All this kind of stuff that these CEOs just seem to manage to walk away from, like they're walking through a forest of money with a money magnet strapped in their pants. Will this person actually be arrested? Will he face any charges of wrongdoing? Well, you know, Barclays has been given a fairly hefty fine, £290 million, for manipulating the markets in their favour. It seems a bit pointless reiterating the sort of observations of the corruption and the pocket stuffing that is going on in the higher echelons of this financial industry, the banks in particular. But I think it will be worth watching this situation simply to see if he is given a nice gilded retirement package, and they will try and hopefully shuffle him off into the background quietly, or will actually any charges be brought against him or other people in Barclays Bank? Considering they've given them this fine, I doubt very much there will be any kind of charges. You won't have seen it probably in the mainstream media. You might have seen it in the alternative media. There are some people still talking about it, and the information is still out there if you want to look for it. Just look at the situation as it was and how it developed in Iceland over the last year, the steps they have taken, the fact that now their economy, even though, greatly reduced, it is actually growing again. Again, it's going into all this money magic economics that to me is simply that, money magic. You are manipulating something that doesn't really exist to make more of something that doesn't really exist. Yes, it's the classic meme of alchemy, of turning lead into gold, except they don't even have the lead. They're just turning thin air into gold. But anyway. Yes, an interesting week in lots of ways. And today I think the story come out that this is in United States, the Obamacare has been passed, ratified, however it is they define it in their political system, I'm not sure. But Obamacare has been passed. Now, I'm not pointing this out in reference to whether people do or don't want private or nationalised healthcare. I'm not really concerned with that issue. It's an important issue for people to talk about and decide, yeah, obviously, but I think what's very much more telling with this is the fact that the government are basically sanctioning the public citizenry to have to purchase certain products from private businesses. Isn't that just corporatism? The government socialising the debt and privatising the profit. Yes, so that was quite interesting to see that pop up all of a sudden today. We will see how that progresses. Having checked back on the news this afternoon, there's already lots of different sites talking about it, posting articles about it. I'm sure that will develop over the next however many hours as American continent is waking up and getting moving and getting into the day. They'll be looking at this news, and hopefully a lot of them will be looking at it going, whatever? Anyway, yes, another slight observation, just general news stuff, like I said. This is nothing spectacularly esoteric or occult, not at all. This is not hidden, this is all very readily available out there for you. Like I said, I'm just trying to observe the trends, the memes, hopefully seeing the agenda reveal itself now and then through the exercising of its very long tentacles. When it has a reach that is so far-reaching, at some point or another during the extent of that reach, you've got a possibility of it becoming visible. When we see them make broad, wide strokes across policy, across nation states, international relations, things like that, that's a good way to watch for the agenda moving. Anyway, yes. One particular news article which I did grab a link for, I'm pretty sure most of the people in the chat room will probably have already seen this. It come up a few days ago. This is from the Daily Mail, the dailymail.co.uk, if you want to go and search for it. London 2012 Olympics, criminals face fast-track justice is the link title. I think that is the same title. It's a longer title on the actual article. Criminals at the Olympics to face fast-track justice as prosecutors aim to repeat judicial blitz which followed riots last year. Yeah, the riots which were in various cities across the UK last year. Obviously primarily in London, but there was a lot of damage caused in various other cities as well. It wasn't contained just to the capital, even though on the whole the mainstream media loves to talk about the capital. A large portion of mainstream media news concentrates on London. London is the most important city, obviously, of course it is, it's London. Yes, anyway. I don't live in London. I wonder why. In my usual fashion, I'm looking at this. It was unfortunately at this point I had technical difficulties causing an internet disconnection. This is just to note an edit at this point to rejoin the two separate recorded portions. Well, the parts that were recorded were allowing for that interruption. So just to note that this has been stitched back together. So yes, anyway, sorry folks, that's the end of this edit note, and I'll get back to the original recording of the broadcast. Just waiting for conversation, or confirmation I should say. So apologies if I'm gibbering for 2 seconds. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Excellent. Okay. Sorry for that coitus interruptus. Could be the weather. Where I live in the UK, we have been experiencing some rather extreme weather today. Look, had at least 2 thunderstorms this afternoon, to possibly genuine internet interruption, but whatever. I've got it back on now. Just have to sign back into everything. Are we there? I think we are. Yes, we are. Okay then. Well, I'm not sure how much you missed, because I was doing my usual rambling. Let me just reopen that. Yes, I was talking about that Olympic story. Well, I might as well just carry on anyway. If you missed what I was saying, I'm sure you'll get over it and manage without it. To just quickly generalise, I was pointing out my usual observations of the police state within that article. It is the Daily Mail, so you know they are, or they do quite often put out those kind of propaganda pieces. It's very much playing on not only the fear porn aspect, you know, adding more to that meme of something bad is going to happen at the Olympics, but also taking from the public's general fear of the riots which occurred last year to push those knee-jerk reaction buttons, so that the public's actually quite happy that they will be treating criminals this way during the Olympics. I'm not sure if I was still on air when I mentioned, you know, if you just look at some of the comments under that article, you can see how some of the same old rhetoric from last year of get the troops back on the streets and stuff like that is still there. Well, of course it's still there. If it had gone away, I think we might actually notice a difference, but anyway. Yes, interesting fear propaganda piece. And that was, coincidentally, meant to lead me into the track I was going to play next, just before I got disconnected. Yes, so I'm going to play a couple of music tracks which I think are somewhat appropriate as far as I'm concerned, linked, tenuously connected, as I usually do. Anyway, I'll shut up and play a tune. Listen to this.
We are flipping the pyramid.
Yes, welcome back, folks. We are... Yeah. Oh dear, I've got a terrible Winamp bug back when every time it moves from one file to the next, it pauses for about a second or two, freezes. Whatever bug that is, or flash bug, or whatever, or whether it's something else going on, I'll find out later on. But I'm afraid I'll just have to put up with it for now. A couple of tracks there. Embed featuring Lee Oakes, Great Britain, and Asian Dub Foundation, Real Great Britain. Seemed appropriate. Oh yeah, and the first track I played at the start of the show was Rush, Something for Nothing. That does sort of link in, again, in my usual tenuous, connective fashion, to some of the stuff I want to talk about in a bit. But anyway, yes, a couple of decent tunes. I did say I was going to be playing more music during doing these shows now. That was partly why I wanted it to be 2 hours. It's not so much because I want to talk at you continuously for 2 hours now, so it gives me enough space to do my usual rambling and play some music. because I like to use music. I think it's a good way of communicating. It's certainly a good way of passing information, as well as being sonic therapy. And I think I said it last week, I pinched Adonis's little caveat on it. You know, if I play something you don't particularly like, just wait for a bit and something else will be along within a few minutes. I have quite an eclectic taste in music. Sometimes I might stick to a particular trend, but I will mix it up a fair bit. Anyway, yes, another story. Let's touch a little bit further on the news, because I thought that this did make me chuckle. Again, in that unfortunately ironic gallows humour type fashion of, didn't expect that to happen, did we? Oh, yes, of course. Anyway, yes, this was on the RT website, rt.com. I think most people might have seen this coming up. It was already starting to trend across all the various alternative news sites today as I was looking at stuff. A group of, I'm not sure if they were university students or college students, Texas College, scientists at Austin, Texas College, basically spent less than $1,000 putting together the various bits of electronic gubbins they needed to fool a UAV, an unmanned aerial vehicle, you know, a drone. And we're not talking a little like quadrotor, you know, buy in a toy shop and fly around your living room type drone. No, we're talking UAV, military grade drone. And they managed to fool it enough to be able to take control of it. So you could say they hacked into it in a way. It is hacking, yes. They didn't exactly like rewrite the code inside or anything like that. No, they just used a little bit of trickery involving the GPS signal that the drones use in the same way as all other aircraft use, that ping to help them know where they are in the sky, so that obviously air traffic controllers can monitor them, don't get mid-air collisions, etc., etc. But less than $1,000 to supersede the electronics involved. What's the average of them? About $4 million a pop for one of those drones. You know, the price comparison there. You know, most terrorists, I think, if we take the sort of very generalised and typically propagandised, demonised view of terrorists, you know, they are usually poor people. They don't exactly have tons of cash to throw, you know, millions of dollars into electronics, computer equipment, etc., to be able to hack into one of these drones and take it over. But I'm sure they can scrape together $1,000. You know, and the American government recently announcing that, you know, they're going to be rolling out thousands and thousands of drones into the skies. Their aviation authority, remember an acronym out of the great acronym soup that spreads across into the FAA, you know, already literally rubber stamping out licenses for these drones to be used by various different groups, the police, etc., as well as private corporations. You know, Google will most definitely want to have their drones up in the air taking photographs of you while you're sat out on your decking sunbathing, you know. That's what Google likes to do. They like to check up on you. They like to make sure you're okay and you're still there where they put you. Oh dear, lighter work. It does help when your lighter works. So anyway, yes, as I said, I'm being deliberately gallows humour with this, but it's not a joking matter at all. when, yes, there may have been computer geeks, nerds, whatever you want to call them, they're in college, professors, etc., etc. Yeah, they've got the on-hand knowledge and skills to do this stuff as readily as they have proven themselves capable to do it. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't take other vested interests very long to catch up and figure out what they were doing and how they did it and put together a similar package. So this is the amazing security features of your new militarized government. Yes, we can look after you, folks. Just don't press the red button. Oh dear. And of course, this is not even accounting for the fact that, as has been shown, I think just in general pop culture over the past few years, the construction of and use of homemade drones, homemade robotics, is not beyond the layperson. It is not beyond the man in a shed to put together enough electronics and machinery to be a great danger to people. This is a very, very rapidly accelerating helter-skelter ride to a robotized military structure. I've spoken about this before. It wasn't my intention to go off into that same usual rant, but this sort of if this doesn't make people, again, like I say, what? If this doesn't make you stop and facepalm, and if by some scant remote possibility you're not familiar with that sort of internet parlance, facepalm, where you literally smack your hand into your face because it's so much in disbelieving shock you cannot believe that this is actually going on, this is actually happening. $1,000 to take down a multi-million-dollar piece of hardware, built by a bunch of nerds in college. I'm not being derogatory to the guys, it's just fair play. They've got the skill and the knowledge to do this, but most people would view them as college nerds, electronics nerds, computer nerds, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, yeah, as I said, that story is starting to spread. It was out yesterday. I didn't catch it until today, although it did only come out at 10:30 yesterday my time. Anyway, watch the skies. It always used to be, that phrase was sort of like, meant to imply that there were UFOs out there and you should be watching to look for the UFOs. Well, they're not UFOs anymore, folks. They're UAVs. Those flashing lights you saw hovering in the sky, that's not a UFO. That's just the local police helicopter monitoring what you're doing. Why are you out in your garden late at night looking up into the sky? Are you planning some nefarious solar act of terrorism? You're going to erect a giant solar umbrella? Yeah. Yes, enough of me warbling on that. It's just, yes. Again, it's another topic that you could spend a long time on, talking about the drones and robotisation, militarisation of the police, militarisation of the hinterland, the homeland, the home territories, etc. Classic fascism. When your own population starts to question what you are doing in other countries, then you have to start stamping your foot down in your own country. Keep control of the population. Another story. I haven't connected these stories together in any deliberate way. I probably could find some tenuous connection between them in some manner. This was more just, as I said earlier, me picking up on general things that sort of crop out of the the news media to my attention. Now, you know, this is not all I've looked at. I've looked at hundreds of stuff over the last week. It's just sort of things that pique my interest enough for me to focus more attention on them. Anyway, one of the other stories, which again I haven't got a link for because it's fairly readily available, as a mainstream news article that's going around at the moment, or news story that's doing the rounds in the different I was going to say newspapers. I'm loath to call the majority of them newspapers anymore. They're not. Anyway, a story that some more scientists, you know, all praise the scientists, they're really churning this stuff out for us recently. Some more scientists reckon they figured out how to make an anti-smoking gene. That is a bit of a gross simplification of it, obviously, just to sort of simplify the science for people to understand. But it's basically the equivalent of a vaccine which people can be injected with, which propagates in the liver, I think they said, liver or the kidney. I can't honestly remember now, one or the other, but it propagates inside your system, and when you smoke, it basically nullifies the nicotine. It negates any of the nicotine that you're taking in from the smoking. So it's sort of like chemically enforced cold turkey. Now, I am a smoker. I choose to smoke. It is my choice. It is my body. I fully respect other people's rights to not inhale my smoke if they don't wish to. So I won't smoke around people that are avidly against it or ask me not to or whatever. You know, I'm not saying I'm one of those PC whipped, you know, bowing and scraping to apologise for my socially engineered leopardom of being a smoker. No, not at all. But I think it is only fair that if I wish to choose what I put in my body, then other people have exactly the same right, and if they choose to not want smoke in their body, I respect that. That's their choice. So I will adjust my smoking habits to meet with people that I'm interacting with. So if I go to a friend's house and that friend is a non-smoker, I don't smoke in their house. Unless, if I ask and they say it's okay, great, wonderful. But if they ask me not to, I don't smoke in their house. It's their house. If they ask me not to, it's their privilege. It's their right to have that choice over what they are surrounding themselves, what they are allowing into their bodies. Anyway, I'm digressing. This, again, for me, it does sort of link into somewhat of the police state, but really the police state is more defined by that militarised pseudo-police. Once they reach that stage, they're not really police anymore, they're just another branch of the military forces. But this obviously stems further into eugenics. No matter how much you try to gloss over it with the usual kind of claims towards health benefits and reducing strain on healthcare systems, all this kind of usual moral justifications that they attempt to utilise to socially engineer people into making the choices or having the opinions that they want them to have. That again, in and of itself, is a subject that you could have a long conversation about. But for me, this is just sort of, again, often I see a lot of these articles that appear in the mainstream media as just blatant propaganda. There's certain the implementations of programming propaganda. They are the little tweaks in the social engineering stream as it flows from those creating it out through to those they want it to reach. These little tweaks nudge people into the directions they want them to go. Obviously, the more reactive the article is, the more emotive it is, the more it deliberately plays on those usual kind of, unfortunately, detrimental traits of human beings. Bigotry, racism, selfishness, all those kind of classic bad stuff. These articles tend to subtly attempt, most of the time subtly, not always, it does also depend on which particular newspaper broaches these articles first, as to how they're framed and how they're actually written up. But that for me was such blatant glossing over of eugenics, with, as I said, that kind of justification to, oh, it's for your own health, it's for your own good. You don't really want to be a smoker. If you understood the damage it does, you wouldn't want to smoke. I do understand, and I've looked at it, and I've thought about it, and I've made my own decision. Thank you very much. This goes back into that forced choice. It does relate in a similar fashion to the news announcement today about the Obamacare situation. This is the nanny state attempting to take your decisions from you. They will give you a delusion of freedom of choice, but you don't really have a freedom of choice because they've already taken the choice away from you. Or they steer you through social engineering to make the choice they want you to make. Alluded to that, which I'm sure most smokers are probably very aware of, certainly in the UK. Anywhere in the UK, if you're a smoker, you are really in effect considered a social leper. Certainly in the larger urbanised areas, in the bigger cities, it's quite endemic. The anti-smoking bigotry, I suppose you could call it. Definitely, it does get to that stage, because when people get to that level of emotive, reactive stage, they're not really thinking in any conscious way. They're just acting on pure emotion. You're smoking. Oh, I hate you. You are a demon. You are evil. You must die. You must go and stand out in the rain. Evil smoker. Dirty, dirty. Because that's what's been pumped into their heads for the past many years, however many years, in the UK. Anyway. It was just one other story that I wanted to bring up, because it seemed, as I've said, I've already said it at least a couple of times, one of those typical emotive, reactive, knee-jerk propaganda, social engineering articles that conveniently, in its wording, tippy-toes past the subjects of eugenics. It's almost like a phantom in the background, the way these articles are now worded. We've had a lot to do with genetics and genetic manipulation. Scientifically, there's been a lot going on in the last few years. Certainly in the last couple of years, we've had quite a lot of similar articles constantly pushing that meme towards a transhumanistic agenda, which may be obviously more geared towards biotech rather than silicon-based tech, but it is still transhumanism. You are altering yourself from the human you were born as. This goes far beyond just the things that humans already do, such as body modification, the extremes that some people go to. It's not only tattooing, it's inserts, bifurcations, piercings, subdermal implants, all kinds of stuff. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the people out there that look, you look at them and you think, is there a human underneath all that metalwork? There's got to be someone there. But this is, as I say, subtle steering point. It creates just enough of a knee-jerk reaction in the public that the public starts chatting about it, generally nattering about it, and you've, as I say, you've got that justification lean where they attempt to already steer your moral choice or give you your moral choice by implying that, you know, even smokers don't really want to smoke. It's a horrible, nasty, dirty, evil thing. Oh, they can't honestly be really choosing to. No, it's just because they're addicted. If we cure them, everything will be okay. That does sort of slightly connect me into what I want to sort of ramble around next, but it does also connect me into another song I wanted to play. A couple of songs actually. I'm going to I'll play two songs, one track. Listen and you'll see what I mean. I will be back in approximately 10 minutes.
It's time to evolve ideas. Evolution did not end with us growing thumbs. You do know that, right? It didn't end there. We're at the point now where we're going to have to evolve ideas. The reason the world's so fucked up is we're undergoing evolution. And the reason our institutions, our traditional religions are all crumbling is because they're no longer relevant. They're no longer relevant. So it's time for us to create a new philosophy and perhaps even a new religion, you see. And that's okay, because that's our right, because we are free children of God with minds who can imagine anything. And that's kind of our role. How do you evolve ideas? I'll give you an example right here. By the way, there are more dick jokes coming. Please relax. I know I'm starting to lose them a little bit here with this shit. I'm like digging a fucking hole right now. And another thing. Where the hell did Bill go? He dug himself right through the planet. I hear people heckling in Chinese right now. Why you don't do dick joke? Do dick joke. Win crowd back. No one wants to hear your philosophy. They want to hear dick joke. Wow, what a completely rational heckler. They pay to hear dick joke, not to hear you talk about the President Bush. Here's how you evolve an idea. I'll give you an example. Why is the drug czar of this country... Well, let's go back. Why do we have a drug czar in this country? A. B, why is he a cop? Why isn't he a guy in recovery who's had an alcohol and or drug addiction and overcome it? And why doesn't he help people with the same problem with compassion rather than condemnation? Why do we put people who are on drugs in jail? They're sick. They're not criminals. Sick people don't get healed in jail. See, it makes no sense. And if we evolve the idea, you see, the planet might be more compassionate and something like heaven might dawn. I want everyone here to take the 5 dried grams I taped under your all chairs right now. Under your chairs. Check them out. Check them out. Under your chair. Let's go, man. The fucking UFOs are waiting in the 5th dimension. Let's go! We'll do it later. We'll do it as a closer. Shit.
Yes, again, thank you, Mr. Bill Hicks. Time to evolve. I hope you can hear me again okay. I'm still having that Winamp bug pausing the files, but there you go. Deal with that later. Another system clean-up, no days. Okay, well, it does link in again, as I like to do. You know, I like to try and keep connections flowing if possible, because it is all connected one way or another, from one direction or another. This also links into some of the stuff I was talking about last week, or sort of skirted, mentioned a little bit. Excuse me, coughing. Going back to tribalism, and connecting from that, I mean, Mr. Hicks there does sort of vaguely mention drugs, and in particular talking about the drug czar, etc. Again, you know, those particular clips are quite a few years old now, so the people he's actually referring to, you know, have changed. Well, the faces have changed. And I don't mean in a reptilian sense, although I'm sure some people could argue that anyway. Yes, before I digress off onto wild tangents. I often talk about, you know, keep evolving, I often mention that kind of stuff, because I feel it is part and parcel of what's going on, plus the only constant you can rely on is change. And change means things are changing, so you can either evolve along with them, and I don't mean allowing yourself to be pushed along by them, but you can evolve along as time changes everything else around you. You know, you are in only this one moment, but that moment connects to the next and the next and the next in one long stream to make yet another infinitely long moment. But yeah, let's not go off into a digression about time. Tribalism. The reason I wanted to go back to mention this was because I was reading what I felt was quite an interesting article the other day. Let me grab a link for those people in the chat room. I will explain the link verbally in a sec in case people want to look for it. It's on a site called wakingtimes.com. It's a little article called How to Start a Revolution Using Self-Inflicted Philosophy. It's an article written by somebody who just calls himself Zed. He has written quite a few articles. You can have a mooch around, look at his other stuff. I will mention one of his other postings as we go along. But I've found it quite interesting, quite insightful, inspiring. As I am almost always want to do, I don't quite agree with absolutely everything he's saying, but on the whole, 99% of what he's saying I can heartily agree with, and I find it very interesting the way he defines his perspective of how he views these different stages, or katas, you could almost call them, within this learning process. The art of self-interrogation, having linked to the article, I'm just skipping through it. I won't read out the entire thing to you. Read it at your leisure if you are inclined. There is, be warned, there's quite a lot of isms going on in this article, but I feel I can sort of comprehend the kind of concept he's trying to lay out, which, you know, unfortunately when we're working with language, especially the English language, it can be quite limited, and sometimes you just have to use isms and all those kind of ideological spanners just so that you can actually lay out the conversation, the debate. But yes, there is quite a lot of isms in it, quite a lot of big words. You know, take your time with it. Don't be put off. It's certainly the concepts he's talking about are certainly not, astrophysics or anything like that. Don't think it's that complicated. But yeah, just fair warning. The art of self-interrogation. Yeah, this is something that I think a lot of what I call the talking heads. Have you got sound? People telling me no sound. Some people telling me there is sound. Hopefully you've got sound. I will carry on. A lot of the people I tend to call what I call talking heads. People that are basically doing similar to myself. They may not claim any particular expertise or qualification in any particular subject. Some do have academically sanctioned qualifications, etc., or just life experience, or however you want to define it. Yes, some do. But on the whole, they are just approaching subjects in a similar manner to myself, where you may not necessarily be grinding over infinitesimal factual data. You are talking more in generalities and observations, and for myself, talking about the situation hopefully in as an holistic manner as I possibly can, because as I've talked about before, I do feel that is a lot of what is missing in our current situation in this modern society. And I'm not a true primitivist. I don't believe we should all go back to living in caves, not the way they used to be. If we, added a few mod cons to those caves, then yes, that would probably be a very good idea. Caves do actually make very good living accommodations when you plan them out properly. But anyway, yes. The art of self-interrogation. I couldn't agree more. Introspection, I feel, my opinion, my perspective, introspection is a major part of worthwhile pursuits and activities. It doesn't just mean sitting there staring at your navel fluff. Even though sometimes you might slip into that mode of thought as you digress, as I digress, I should say. Blaming it all on you. That's called transference, folks, but never mind. Yeah, introspection, definitely. The art of hypocrisy, I often talk about this in the sense of humility. Again, we all have to recognise that we are all hypocrites to one degree or another, in one way or another. If we were not, we would be tapping on the door to enlightenment, ascension, whatever you want to call it. If we were all perfect, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now, would we, folks? You can be as prideful as you like and claim that you're infallible, but philosophically I find that very hard to argue in any successful manner. We are human, we are fallible, and he does actually mention this in other places, which I'll come back to. Yes, the art of rebellion. And as I say, I am just quickly skipping through these points as the author has written about them. Each one has a good paragraph to go with it, where he puts across his own personal point of view. As I said, I'll leave you to read them for yourself. I'm just sort of plucking the general themes out. The art of rebellion. I think this is quite an insightful observation, and I mean insightful in an inspirational fashion, in an intuitive fashion. This is something that I will join into another article that I was going to talk about that was written by this same author, talking about the use of creativity. He's not talking about rebellion necessarily in the usual definition and connotation of an uprising against whatever particular state or nation or whatever form it takes that you're living in. Yes, it is in a way that way, but it could also be defined as using art as protest. Art is protest, protest is art. This is somewhat of a common theme that has been argued around in the artistic sort of genres and academia for a very long time. And there is obviously a good tradition of it. It includes on the article a picture by Banksy. I'm sure it's fairly well known by now, Banksy. You usually only have to say his name, people know who you're talking about. And quotes from Hunter S. Thompson. Very interesting guy, but please do read into his life if you're interested. It's interesting. The art of illusion. Now, this is something that I feel I play with a lot myself. This is a lot of what I do. This is not, I get as he defines when he lays out the paragraph to go along with that title. He's not necessarily talking about the kind of illusion that you would get at a magic show. Kind of prestidigitation, illusion, trick of the eye type stuff. No, he's talking more about the illusory games that we play within this reality. And yes, could go off into a very, very big esoteric tunnel, philosophical, theoretical, very, 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 very long open subject there, which, as I say, I'll leave it for you to read the article and draw for yourself what you want out of it, or what you find out of it. Moving on to the next one, the art of progressive sustainability. Now, this is one which I will sort of link into the other article that I mentioned, but to sort of quickly mention the last one as well, the art of individuation. Again, it's not the last one, sorry, art of transcendence is the last one. The art of individuation. Again, please don't be put off by the big words and the immediate definitions that might spring to mind. Try to pause judgment and read what is there first before you add any automatic definitions to what he's using to try and describe the perspective he's trying to present. Anyway, yes, art of transcendence, I think, is fairly self-explanatory, but again, there's a nice paragraph there to outline it. Anyway, back to the art of progressive sustainability. Now, this was a big part of catching my attention with this article, because I pursued further links and read other articles written by this author, and I also found this one, again, quite interesting. For myself personally, I find it a very interesting perspective. It is a subject that I talk around quite often in one form or another. Now, again, please don't, I've just provided a link to Eco-Moral Tribalism, which was a hub page written by this author. You probably can jump links from the other article if you're looking at that article. Yes, as somebody put in the chat room, yeah, goddamn hippie, yes, dirty unwashed hippies. There we go. You see, that is exactly why I was just going to point out yet again, please don't allow your judgment to jump straight forward, reading the words as written in the usual kind of definition they are accepted as. His use of the word eco, for example, as eco-moral, eco is not really necessarily just implying ecological or economical. He does, I think, quite well outline it in that article of how he means it to be intended as more a linkage into the natural cycles that we experience as natural beings living on this planet. So it's not necessarily the kind of usual green agenda type use of the acronym ECO. It is certainly, again, from my perspective, yes, and I think this is certainly something that this author is talking from a similar perspective. It's that kind of hippieism, however you want to define it, that connection with the natural cycle, the planet, Gaia, a lot of those kind of principles without, from my own opinion, my own perspective, without falling into that green agenda trap of heaping all manner of blame onto the anthropogenic potential problems or possible problems that we are causing to the planet. Yes, arguably we are causing a lot of damage. Are we causing global warming or climate change, as it has now been respun, double speak, relabelled? Now it's climate change. Yes, it's again a separate conversation, separate debate. But I'm just trying to get across that that's not the kind of definition that I think he's trying to get across with this article. But anyway, read the article, you might find it interesting. I wanted to add it in to allow me to talk around the subject in a similar manner, because it relates to a lot of other stuff I've talked about before, and I also talked about last week and mentioned a bit last week. I rambled somewhat around the tribalistic nature of society compared to the mechanised, centralised, pseudo-natural environment that we are currently existing in, for the majority of it, certainly in what would be considered the Western powers, and certainly a large portion of the planet. Obviously not everywhere yet, but it's rapidly, the mass corporate octopus is rapidly slapping its tentacles down all over the globe. Yes, but again, before I digress, I thought it was quite a good way of defining evolution of ideas. That was why I deliberately played the Bill Hicks clip. That's why I've picked particular songs to play, again, as I like to do, to keep a flow, to keep a theme going. We are all undeniably tribalistic in one way or another. Tribalism has been used as a demonising term. It can fall into the traps of nationalism and sectarianism and all kinds of isms. One ism propagates into a whole plethora of isms. But we are all undeniably, in one way or another, it's been rebranded into psychosocial structures of power relations in the modern academic system. But really it's just talking about tribal unifications, tribal interactions, tribal relationships and associations. It's just redefining them for the modern academic palette so they can be pigeonholed more precisely. But that kind of circular interaction that I've spoken about a lot before, I think he presents quite an interesting perspective on how that kind of ancient knowledge, I'm dubious to call it knowledge, because I think it is something that has become instinctually part and parcel of being human, is the way we interact in a social manner. We are a social animal, even though, yes, there's always exceptions to the rule. There are some people that like to be on their own and stuff like that, but on the whole, we are social animals. We operate in groups. We benefit from operating in groups. We achieve more when operating in groups, and that's not necessarily to denigrate any person's individual achievements or abilities. It's just the fact that on a large scale, on the holistic organism scale of the human race as a mass body, a mass singular organism, we operate as groups. There's lots of subgroups within that singular mass. Different tribes, different natures, nations with different natures probably, different cultural backgrounds, etc. You know full well the kind of divisions I'm talking about. We are fractured into a rainbow spectrum, a spectrum that reaches far beyond just the limit of the colours that we can see in the rainbow. but we are all still operating in a very similar manner on the basic levels. So he takes that idea of tribalism. I've often talked about it before as neo-tribalism. I see it as that reacquisition of what used to be, as I said earlier dubiously, sort of natural knowledge of humans interacting with each other in those kind of manners, and reapplying it to modern experience. He does, as the name does somewhat imply, he's attempting to create a philosophical construct. You could possibly define it as an ideology to allow a system of government, loosely, for want of a better word, government, govern thyself. But it is that if we are operating within a tribal system or a power relation system where there are interconnected circles within circles, rings within rings, links within links, then we need to have some kind of acceptable system, acceptable being the main thing, where we can balance out the differences from one polarized side of the spectrum to the other, because from one side of the planet to the other, humanity is a spectrum of different perspectives, beliefs, as I said earlier, cultures, etc., etc., etc. You know the kind of thing I'm talking about. But anyway, yes, I did find it, again, interesting article. Again, I don't quite agree with everything, but I think he does lay it out quite well, presents quite a good argument, perspective, however you want to define it. But tribalism in that respect is something that I will probably mention again. I'm sure I'll come back to it. I think people who've listened to me before in a regular way will know it's one of my favourite subjects. The police state, transhumanism, tribalism, eugenics. Yes, those are the kind of subjects that tend to get me rambling quite a lot, so I'm sorry if I've rambled randomly around the subjects. For myself, looking at this kind of information, this is a recent discovery for me of reading these articles from this particular author. I've read similar perspectives presented in different ways before, academic perspectives, standardized academic arguments, etc. But I found over the years, and this again is why it led me back to that perspective of a shamanistic interaction with existence. Last week I used my usual caveat with an addendum of I am not a shaman, so just sort of repeat that now. I am not a shaman. But I see a lot of what we do, and I say we in a very generalised term, again, don't get sidetracked into my usual pedantic caveats of philosophical arguments. What we do, a lot of what we do, is, in a shamanistic sense, a healing sense, reconnecting people to things that they have forgotten, or things that have been driven to the back of their mind by the mass distraction and delusion that is the matrix, that is the machine, that is the agenda that these uber powerful individuals or families or corporations, whoever they actually are in that smoky back room, shuffling the boards on that grand chess table, they want us to keep going along with the status quo. They will contract that status quo to give them more control, to make sure you stay within the status quo that they want, which basically just keeps them in power. This is something I've talked about quite often before. Again, another favourite subject. And this, of course, is keeping it totally materialistic, objective, quantifiable, as Bill Hicks said in the little quote I played earlier. It's provable fact. It certainly is, as far as I'm concerned, from my perspective, my opinion. It's provable fact that there is a small number of people that basically shuffle the majority of the rest of the planet. That's what they do, and they like being in the position of power they're in, so they're not likely to want to give it up. If anything, they've been so endemically inbred and indoctrinated themselves over the past millennia, they probably can't even comprehend of anything else. If anything, that should be a contemplation that leads you to pity these people, despite the mass atrocities and blatant evil that they have committed or allowed to be committed. It could lead me off into a ramble about psychopaths and sociopaths, etc., but I think our modern age has got to a point where they have been normalised. If anything, they are the norm now. Being a sociopath will get you somewhere in life. If you're following the Matrix blue pill, sheeple dream life perspective, being a sociopath will get you further, get you better jobs, get you more money, more stuff, more power. Anyway, yes. So I will ramble around the subject of tribalism and shamanism, because I see it as a way of utilising, such as we're doing now, utilising frequency, utilising sound, utilising interactive community, group activities. Again, I'm not saying that to denigrate any individual person's productivity, creativity, knowledge, ability, skills. No, it's just that I personally feel that real changes that need to be made to this paradigm, the radical changes that need to occur to this system, have to happen on a community basis, because, as I said earlier, we are social animals. We can't avoid that fact. There's nearly 7 billion of us on the planet. Yeah, there's a few places on the planet still where you can go for a bit of isolation, but most of the planet now, it doesn't take too long before you start bumping into people. You have to live somewhere. Where are you going to live? Oh, lo and behold, you got neighbours. Community is part and parcel of our current understanding or comprehension of existence. Therefore, we should allow for it within our life. Again, this takes me back to the shamanistic aspects of rebalancing, of helping people connect to things that they have lost or they have forgotten. They're still there, they've just forgotten what they were meant for and how to utilise them, and what benefits they gained from them, because the system, the Matrix, has superseded, it's conned you, it's tricked you. You don't want the cure, you want this is better, this special, particular, double boiled snake oil rosehip brew will keep you honest. Buy this, or you want it. Whatever it is they're particularly packaging to sell to you. Stick a $sign on everything they possibly can. There is that classic North American Indian quote, if I can remember it without paraphrasing it too much. When the white man has finished sticking $signs on everything, he'll realise that he can't eat gold or silver. But it does seem that we are rapidly approaching that crux point, that bifurcation point where there is that choice. more and more people, I think, I feel, maybe it's just because I'm an optimist. Again, it's something that you encounter quite often in the talking heads. The talking heads do tend to carry a level of optimism with them. If they didn't, they wouldn't be chattering away because they'd already have their head down thinking, oh shit, there's nothing we can do. So, just try and stay optimistic. Is the glass half full, or is it actually technically completely full because it's half full of water and half full of atmosphere, therefore it's completely full? There is no spoon. I'm going to play you a couple more tracks, hopefully, which don't stick too much just before we get to the end of the show. Thank you very much for listening, folks. Hopefully I haven't rambled in too many random directions in such a way that you have been hypnotically put to sleep. But anyway, yes, you never know, that might be a good thing. You might have some interesting dreams. Yes, I'll play a couple of tracks. I'll shut up now and play these two tracks again. Yes, it just caught my attention to play these because I thought they seemed particularly appropriate. Back in a couple of minutes.
There is a point. Is there a point to all this? Let's find a point. Is there a point to my act? I would say there is. I have to. The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride, and we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. Look at my furrows of worry. Look at my big bank account and my family. This has to be real. It's just a ride. But we always kill those good guys who try and tell us that. You ever notice that? And let the demons run amok? But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace. Thank you very much. You've been great. I hope you enjoy it. London, you're fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. How about a positive LSD story? That would be newsworthy, don't you think? Anybody think that just once, to hear a positive LSD story? Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. That we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather.
Yes, and the weather today was really stormy, lots of rain. Anyway, folks, yes, that's me. Done. I will play one more song, which will be my usual outro song. Thank you very much for listening. Please go check out the website, FlippingThePyramid.co.uk, and don't forget our good mates Adonis and the Finn crew over at FreedomInfoNetwork.org, and hopefully we will see a show starting soon from Keelan. He said he's very interested in putting some broadcast stuff out there again. That's wideshut.co.uk. Please check his website out as well. Some great articles on there. Take care, folks, and like I usually say, keep evolving. That's what we're here for, I think. Yes, and hopefully this file will work. I apologise again for the interruption at the beginning. Hopefully I can get that sorted out for next time. Take care, folks.
Flipping the Pyramid. www.flippingthepyramid.co.uk